Welcome to my Neve Story channel. I was reborn and returned to the day when my rich parents recognized their family. Back then, when they found me, I acted both weak and pitiful, throwing myself into their arms. In my previous life, I told them where their biological daughter was, but I suffered an unfortunate accident for no reason. In this life, I decided to follow my destiny and enjoy a life of wealth and luxury instead of the real little princess. Our story officially begins. I hope you like it. One day, a luxury car pulled into the slum district, and an extraordinary-looking couple got out. I was still working in the fields when the woman saw me and immediately asked enthusiastically, "Excuse me, is there a girl here named Emma Shen?" When I was about 13, I had a birthmark in the shape of a butterfly on my collarbone. One day, while I was working in the fields, I saw a woman and immediately became alert, covering my birthmark with my hand. She froze for a moment, but quickly turned around and opened her arms to hug me. She said to me, "Emma, do you remember your mother? Let your mother take a good look at you. Ever since you went missing when you were 3 years old, I have missed you so much." As she said this, her voice became choked with emotion. Images of the playground came to mind, a big place with lots of people, and I couldn't find my mother. Tears welled up in my eyes. Seeing how distressed I was, the woman felt even more distressed, and hugged me tightly. "You have suffered a lot over the years, and in the future, Mommy will take good care of you." I broke free from her embrace, looked up at her tearful face, and my heart was still very wary. I asked her, "You are my mom, is there any way to prove it?" Over the years, many people have tried to adopt me, but in the end they all abandoned me, so why should I believe you? Hearing my words, they were even more distressed. They took out a jade pendant and handed it to me. It was half-moon shaped. She said, "This is a half-moon jade pendant. You should also have one on you. The two together form a circle. This should prove that we are your mom and dad, right?" She looked at me with anticipation. I took the jade pendant out of my pocket. Seeing their painful expressions, I couldn't stop my tears, as if I wanted to vent all the grievances I had suffered over the years. They hugged me in their arms. I understood that they believed me, and I had succeeded. I am an orphan, and my grandmother adopted me. Unfortunately, my grandmother passed away when I was 10 years old. My grandmother attached great importance to my studies and sent me to school early, hoping that I could change my fate through education. In those days, the education of girls was not valued, especially in the slums. People felt that it was useless for girls to study, and that their task was to work, get married and raise children as soon as possible. Emma was my best friend since childhood. We grew up together in the slums. When we were young, we exchanged precious things with each other, and she gave me a jade pendant. Because we were among the few students in the slum, everyone paid close attention to us. We went to school together and were often compared. We looked similar, but I felt I was prettier and had better grades than her. Later, the Shen family came to claim family members, but they mistook me. I corrected them in time and explained the jade pendant, so that Emma was successfully taken home. Emma also pretended to be affectionate and wanted me to go with her to the Shen family and live a good life with her. I was naive enough to think that she was treating me sincerely out of our many years of friendship, but I didn't expect to be greeted by a difficult life. Lily and I grew up together since childhood, and I don't want to be separated from her, not to mention the fact that she has no other relatives in her family. Can I let her go home with me? Emma asked her parents carefully. Emma's mother nodded and said with full of affection, "Of course you can, my dear, Mommy and Daddy will fulfill your request." Watching their intimate appearance, I felt a little envious, but what moved me even more was that Emma was willing to plead with her family for me. Therefore, I would give in to Emma in everything that happened afterwards. Not long after I returned to the Shen family, Emma's father held a family recognition banquet for Emma, where most of the guests were people who were fawning over the Shin family. Emma was very happy to be the center of attention. Emma suddenly exclaimed, attracting everyone's attention. "My diamond ring is missing," she said anxiously. "Did you go anywhere just now? Did you drop it somewhere?" A girl asked. "I went to the toilet a while ago, and I remember taking it off when I washed my hands," Emma said with a sigh of relief, and then walked quickly towards the toilet, followed by a few girls. I didn't follow, but sat down in a corner. It wasn't long before Emma and the group returned, seemingly heading my way, which made me feel a little uneasy. "Hey, did you find anything when you went into the toilet?" Emma looked at me hesitantly and asked. "No," I shook my head firmly. "That's really strange. I just left my diamond ring on the sink and forgot to take it with me. Now I can't find it when I go back. Maybe someone else took it. It's a pity there's no surveillance in the bathroom. It's really my mistake." Emma pounded her head in frustration. How could it be possible? Who among the people attending this party would steal your diamond ring? It's no use taking it back. Only someone who shouldn't be here would steal something. The girl next to her said. "Forget it, it's just a diamond ring. If it's lost, it's lost." Emma stood in front of me, distressed but wanting to stand up for me. The others felt aggrieved too, and after the theft, they might do something even more outrageous. "Emma, you're really kind. Since you say you didn't steal it, let's check to see if you have it on you, so that no one will suspect you." The girl next to her glanced at me and looked displeased. "Why do I have to prove something I didn't do? You're just guilty," she said, pointing her finger at me, and everyone's attention was focused on me. "I didn't." Emma saw that the atmosphere was getting tense and quickly stepped in to mediate. "Oh, sister, just check your pockets. I believe you didn't do it, but it's fine to check just to eliminate suspicion." With that, she leaned in close to my pockets, and before I knew it, her hand was already in my jacket pocket. "Oops, what's this?" Emma spread her hand out, and inside was the diamond ring. I was very confused. "You said you didn't take it, so what is this? You can't seriously be saying you don't know?" The girl gave me a look of contempt. The people around us, who had been neutral, started pointing and whispering when they saw the ring. Emma hurriedly told everyone not to spread the news about what had happened today. Her sister had just taken the ring by mistake, and of course everything that was mine was also hers. Emma's father came over when he heard a noise and heard this. He asked Emma suspiciously, "What happened?" A girl said angrily, "Uncle Shen, the maid in your family is not decent and has done something she shouldn't." "What, Lily stole something?" Emma's father's gaze wandered between me and Emma, full of surprise. "It's okay, she just took a diamond ring, it's no big deal," Emma said with a pretense of generosity. "I really didn't steal it, this is really a misunderstanding." My eyes were full of anxiety and helplessness. Emma nervously took her father's arm and said urgently, "Dad, please don't misunderstand." Emma's father looked serious, his eyebrows furrowed, and his gaze fixed on me as he said, "Lily, you can go home first, you don't need to come to the party." I tried hard to calm myself down, took a deep breath, but in the end, I didn't say anything because I couldn't find any way to prove my innocence, and all the accusations pointed at me. After the party was over, Emma's father had a private conversation with me. He was sitting in an ornate chair, looking serious, with a hint of determination in his eyes. He looked at me and said slowly, "My child, I hope you can leave the Shin family and go to the orphanage. I don't want Emma to be influenced any further. We will arrange things for you at the orphanage." I opened my eyes wide, confused, my mouth slightly open as if I wanted to say something, but I was shocked by these sudden words. "Uncle, I don't understand. I have never oppressed Emma." My voice trembled with grievance. My heart was like waves, and countless thoughts sprang up in an instant. How could this be? I clearly haven't done anything. I felt aggrieved and angry, but in the face of Emma's father's determined gaze, I felt somewhat powerless. However, since you've said so, there's no point for me to stay. I lowered my head, my voice low and helpless, my clenched fists turning white from the force. I looked up and looked at Emma's father again, trying hard to make my eyes firm. Okay, Uncle, I'll leave. Thank you for taking care of me all this time. Sorry, I can't comply with this request. How did you know about this? I was so surprised that my voice raised. Emma's face wore a twisted smile, her eyes flashing with delight and madness. I planned this. How about it? Do you like the big gift I gave you? My heart sank all of a sudden, feeling like I had fallen into an abyss. I never thought she would hate me to this extent. I shook my head in disbelief, my lips trembling. My heart felt like it was being stabbed by countless sharp knives, with anger, sadness, and despair all mixed together. What did I do wrong to make you treat me like this? I glared at her, my voice hoarse with anger. But seeing her crazy appearance, I felt incredibly alienated. The good old moments became unattainable in an instant. I realized that my return to the Shin family was just a ploy on her part, and I felt utterly lost. Later, there was a fire at the orphanage, and I left behind me a land of pain and regret. Fortunately, I was reborn, and this time I will make those people pay. I returned to the Shin family, this time as the eldest daughter of the Shin family. After returning home, I began to study the knowledge I had previously fallen behind in. Thanks to the memories from my previous life, studying was not difficult for me now, and I even mastered it very quickly. The famous teachers my parents hired were full of praise for my talent. Before Mrs. Shin lost her biological daughter, she gave birth to a son. Her brother studied abroad at a young age. In my previous life, I didn't have many opportunities to meet him, and my relationship with the Shin family didn't seem to be very good. The Shin family is a large family. Emma's father originally planned for Lucas Shin to inherit Shin Corporation, but Lucas doesn't seem to be interested in this at all, and they argue every time they go home. This is one of the reasons why Emma's father has been trying to find his biological daughter for all these years. Unfortunately, Emma in her previous life was never very motivated, and in the end, no one knows who will be the manager of Shin Corporation, but it definitely won't be her. I took the initiative to ask Emma's mother to teach me how to play the piano and dance, and she praised me for being very clever. When we went to visit my grandparents, Emma's mother praised me even more. Emma's mother's family was from a scholarly family that placed great importance on talent, and I happened to meet their expectations. Apart from my brother, whom I have yet to meet, I get along well with all the family members, so the Shin family couple was very satisfied with me. Soon after, they held a family reunion banquet for me, inviting many wealthy families to formally announce the return of the second daughter of the Shin family. I appeared at the banquet wearing a custom-made pink dress, elegant and cute, with a skirt that flowed like a dreamlike nebula. The wealthy families present probably didn't expect me to still be so outstanding after years of wandering, and they smiled and praised me, and Emma's mother was also overjoyed. The days that followed were just like any other. My tutor continued to help me with my homework, but I wasn't satisfied with my current knowledge and began studying university mathematics. My teacher was happy to help me and answered my questions with all his heart. I already had a plan in mind. Emma would notice sooner or later, and my goal now was to make sure that she would never be able to catch up, even if she returned to the Shin family, so that I could secure my position. Finally, I found my chance. The fourth National Mathematics Competition began as scheduled. In the tense competition, many outstanding students were concentrating on solving the problems, the tips of their pens rustling on the paper. I remained calm, quick-witted and composed. Soon, the results were announced. Although I didn't come in first, I had an absolute advantage over some of the outstanding students who had been expected to do well. The reason for this was that I was only a high school student at an aristocratic school who had not yet enrolled. The news quickly spread and the media reported on it. Newspaper headlines and TV news all publicized my achievements. Netizens discussed the issue. Some admired me for being able to surpass many highly educated students and teachers at my age, some envied me for having a good family, and more people expressed doubts about it. Some people think that as a student at an aristocratic school, Emma has the power and wealth behind her. They know that she is the daughter of the Shin Corporation and that this is just a publicity stunt to promote the family business. They think that Emma definitely cheated. I find it hard to believe that this is something a middle school student could do. I don't care about these skeptical comments because I have already achieved my goal. The attention is getting bigger and bigger, and more people are starting to notice the Shin Corporation behind me. Emma's father, Emma's mother, immediately called me after learning about this, his tone full of excitement. My face was plastered all over the streets and alleys in advertisements, showing me smiling and solving problems. Emma's father returned home with a proud and satisfied look in his eyes. He pulled me aside into the study with a kind smile on his face. Emma, my teacher told me you are very talented in mathematics, smart and capable. In the future, are you considering studying finance and managing the company with your father? As his daughter, I naturally want to help him with some of the affairs and relieve his pressure. I answered Emma's father mischievously, and he was very satisfied with this. Emma appeared as I returned from an interview with the media. She hurried over, slammed the car door, and Emma's mother looked at her disapprovingly. The driver, seeing that Emma's mother was unhappy, rolled down the window and angrily said, "Where did this little girl come from? Do you know whose car this is? How dare she slam the door like that?" Emma seized the opportunity and shouted, "Mom, I'm your real daughter. The person in the car is an imposter. She stole my jade pendant and pretended to be me, but my birthmark is the real thing." When she mentioned the birthmark, Emma's mother froze for a moment and was about to get out of the car to check. I stopped her. "Mom, there are a lot of people here, let's talk about it when we get back." I knew her, she was my childhood friend. Emma's mother was still very concerned about me and continued to look at me lovingly. When Emma got into the car, Emma's mother froze again. Before she could react, Emma grabbed her arm. She said, "Mom, look at my face, I'm your biological daughter, and this birthmark." She pointed to the birthmark between her collarbones. Despite everything she had been through, Emma's mother didn't know what to do in this situation. She could only calm her daughter down and tell her not to worry, and that she would go back and ask Emma's father for his opinion. Emma wanted to continue talking, but seeing her mother's helplessness and headache, she shut up. Back at the Shin family, Emma's father and brother were in the living room. They looked at Emma and I as we appeared in the doorway and froze for a moment. I stood straight, while Emma was covered in dirt, as if she had just been through a storm. She rushed into the house, tears streaming down her face, and shouted with a trembling voice, "Mom and Dad, I'm your real daughter. I've suffered a lot outside over the years, but now I've finally found my way home." She sobbed, her body trembling slightly. "Look, my birthmark is the best proof, but she stole my jade pendant and took away my identity." She glared at me, pushed me, and continued to sob breathlessly. "For so many years, I have seen your faces in my dreams countless times, and I have longed to be in your arms countless times. Now that I am back, I beg you to believe me and not be deceived by this impostor." Her eyes were full of tears and she looked very pitiful. I was pushed to the ground by her. Lucas became impatient when he saw this and turned his head away from Emma. Emma's father saw me fall and was full of concern. He hurried over to help me get up. I snuggled into Emma's father's arms, looked up at him, tears sliding down my face, and said in a trembling voice with a hint of a sob, "Dad, in that case, I don't want to make things difficult for you either. It's just that Emma and I have the same jade pendant and birthmark. I'll go to the orphanage, maybe that's where I really belong." After saying this, I broke free from my father's embrace and prepared to walk out. Emma's father was holding me up, and after a moment of shock, Emma shouted angrily, "Dad, you have to see clearly, I'm your daughter." Emma's father could not stand it anymore and responded. Usually, I am gentle and refined, and reserved, but in the face of this rude girl, he was obviously not very happy. Emma saw that Emma's father ignored her, and an idea came to her: she was an imposter. "I can have a paternity test with you to let science confirm everything." "No way." Emma's mother, who had not spoken up until now, spoke up. Hearing this, Emma looked at Emma's mother incredulously. I was also confused. Emma's mother held out her hands to comfort Emma, her voice a little shaky. After taking a deep breath, she slowly lowered her hands, her eyes full of pain and helplessness, tears welling up in her eyes. "My child, listen to me. The truth is, we don't have a biological daughter. Many years ago, my best friend entrusted her child to me before she died, hoping that I would take good care of her. So, we can't be sure who is biological." Her shoulders trembled slightly, and her voice became a little choked up. "Over the years, I have been looking for her biological daughter in order to fulfill her last wish, but I never imagined that things would turn out like this." At this moment, Emma's mother's hands were clasped tightly together, her gaze shifting between Emma and me, revealing a mixture of guilt and confusion. I understood in my heart that heaven was helping me, and I gradually understood why they were in no hurry to recognize Emma when they saw her. On the one hand, I had been with them for some time, and a family reunion had already been held, so it would be inappropriate to mention the matter of recognizing the wrong daughter at this moment. Moreover, my reputation was now well known, and Emma's father also wanted to groom me as his successor. As an orphan, I had no attachments, and naturally I was not afraid of Shin Corporation falling into the hands of others. Emma has a foster father and mother, and the situation is no longer like in my previous life. She won't easily pressure me. I heard Emma say that you grew up together with her. How about we adopt you as our daughter? I hope this won't affect your relationship." Emma's mother was silent for a long time before she spoke. Obviously this result made Emma unhappy, but there was nothing she could do about it. She could only glare at me angrily, feeling unbalanced. "That's good. In a few days, you and Emma will go to school together and report." Emma's father let out a sigh of relief and said slowly. The news that the Shin family had adopted a daughter quickly spread among the wealthy families. So when Emma and I walked into the classroom together, we received many strange looks. "Oh no, it should be Emily Shin now." Seeing their strange looks, she clenched her lips, her hands unconsciously balled into fists, her fingernails digging deep into the palms of her hands. She walked stiffly until she found her seat, her ears filled with low whispers. I, on the other hand, remained calm, smiling and acting gracefully and appropriately. "Look, that seemingly shy adopted daughter looks like she might be an illegitimate daughter. There must be some secret, otherwise how could she have such a status?" Every word was like a knife. Emma's face turned pale, her eyes full of anger and grievance, looking helpless. She trembled slightly, took a deep breath, and tried to calm down, trying to look strong. I know she won't give up easily. After all, in her previous life, she was a master at turning black and white. It's ridiculous. She thinks she's still the Shin family's daughter? Those people will change their stance at any time, and as an outsider, she will be an illegitimate daughter no matter what, which will have no impact on her. I had just come out of the bathroom after washing my hands when I happened to run into Emma. She had a smug smile on her face and a defiant look in her eyes. She suddenly turned on the tap and splashed water on herself, instantly soaking a large area of her clothes and hair, making her look very pitiful. She still looked at me defiantly, raised her head and said in a special tone of voice, "Haha, do you think they will believe that you made me wet, or that I did it myself?" After that, she deliberately shook the water droplets on her hair, and the water droplets splashed onto my face. I smiled and looked at her smug face, feeling amused. I quickly walked up to her and grabbed her shoulders with both hands. Before she could react, I had her under control. "Since you like this so much, I'll play along," I said firmly, gritting my teeth. I pushed hard, pushing her face into the dirty sink. She screamed in horror, "Let go of me. Don't you dare." I was unmoved, continuing to press her head down hard. Her hands flailed in the air, trying to struggle, but it was useless against my strength. Water splashed onto her face, and her hair stuck to her face, making her look miserable. After all that, I felt much better. Stepping out of the school building, I took a deep breath and called the orphanage director. When the call was answered, I said bluntly, "Hello, I'd like to talk to you about a deal. You just need to follow my instructions and shoot a video for me. I'll give you 10 million yuan when it's done." The person on the other end of the line was clearly shocked. His voice trembled as he asked, "Are you serious?" I firmly replied, "Of course I'm serious. As long as you can do it, the 10 million yuan is absolutely not a small amount." After a short hesitation, the other person responded respectfully, "I'm not sure what Mrs. request is." "What? You mean Mr. Lee from the orphanage is my biological father? This is impossible." I was in the bathroom at home, pretending to be shocked, my voice trembling, full of disbelief and shock. Seeing the pink skirt stop, I whispered, "This matter must be kept secret, and the Shin family must not find out, let alone make a big deal of it." I looked up and saw that the skirt had disappeared. I knew my chance had come. Emma hasn't bothered me for a few days, and I've been busy preparing for the choir. Next week the choir will be here, and they are all famous people, and the media will be here to film. I was sitting in front of the dressing table, concentrating on sorting out the costumes for the performance and thinking about some details. At this time, Emma suddenly pushed open the door and strode into the dressing room, a mocking sneer on her face. She folded her arms across her chest, looked at me askance, and said coldly, "Oh, still here preparing for the choir, how laid back. I advise you to cherish this identity, after all, counterfeiting is counterfeiting, and who knows what tomorrow will bring." I turned around, looked at you calmly, and noticed several obvious injuries on your body. I smiled slightly, sighed, and walked closer to you. With a hint of pity, I said, "Emma, you should be more concerned about yourself. Looking at the injuries on your body, you look so haggard, there is really nothing noble about you." As I said, I gently stroked the necklace around my neck. Emma became even more angry when she saw my calm expression and threatened, "You just wait. You won't have a good day." I responded with a smile. Chorus successfully performed on stage. After the performance, I got off the stage. Occasionally, I caught a glimpse of Emma's smug expression, her mouth turned up, her eyes full of provocation. I gave a cold smile, the wonderful show was about to begin. The originally bright big screen suddenly went dark, and the audience burst into a hubbub, beginning to discuss. Then, some harsh sounds came into my ears, and everyone stared at the screen in surprise. Emma and a man appeared on the screen, both naked, and the image was hard to look at. The audience below stared in shock, exclaiming, "What's going on?" Someone muttered an expletive, "Shameless." Chaos and consternation engulfed the venue. I stood to one side, watching the scene on the screen with a cold smile on my lips, and whispered, "You asked for it." Emma's original complacent expression instantly froze, as if her mouth had been frozen and couldn't move. Her eyes were filled with disbelief, and then they were overcome by fear and panic, and her face turned pale and weak. Emma's back suddenly became weak and feeble, and her whole body was tottering, as if she were about to fall at any time. Her eyes were wide open, her eyes were filled with bloodshot, and her anger made her originally pale face turn red. She struggled desperately, trying to get away from the security guard's obstruction, rushed over, pointed at me, and shouted excitedly, "It's you. You set this up on purpose. You imposter." The security guards held her arms tightly, and she struggled desperately but was unable to break free. Meanwhile, the keen media swarmed to the scene like sharks smelling blood, cameras and microphones in hand, surrounding the scene. "Excuse me, what happened? Madam, can you tell us what happened?" Questions came from all sides, and the flashing of cameras made the scene even more chaotic. Emma shouted emotionally, "You will pay for this. I won't let you go. She is not the Shin family's daughter, she is an imposter, this should have belonged to me." Emma's father struggled his way through the crowd, his face dark with anger, and pulled Emma out of the way. Emma's hair was a little messy at the moment, and her makeup was smudged, making her look unnatural. The media followed them closely, unwilling to let go of any news material, and the sound of cameras clicking and questions being asked continued endlessly. Emma's father hurriedly took Emma to the car, which quickly drove back to the Shin family. Once inside, Emma's father slammed his cane onto the ground with a loud sound, angrily asking, "What the hell is going on?" His voice was like thunder, shaking the whole house. Emma cowered in a corner, head down, afraid to look at Emma's father, her voice trembling as she said, "I don't know how this happened, it was all that woman's doing." She pointed at me and shouted at me almost out of control. Emma's father glared at her, veins bulging on his forehead, shouting, "How dare you argue? Look at what you've done, you've disgraced the Shin family." At this moment, the atmosphere in the Shin family hall was very tense, as if even the air had frozen. I casually stood to the side, a sneer at the corner of my mouth, and said slowly, "I think that marrying Emma to the man on the screen might be a good idea. After all, it's already spread outside, and she doesn't have any other good families willing to marry her." Emma's already pale face became even more unpleasant when she heard my words. Her eyes widened with anger and despair, and she shouted hysterically, "Don't you dare." She rushed at me in agitation, her hands stretched out in front of her, trying to push me. She kept complaining in her mouth, "All because of you. I'll fight you to the death." I sidestepped and easily avoided her attack. Emma threw herself forward with too much force and missed her target. Emma's father saw Emma lose control like this and was so angry that his whole body trembled. His chest rose and fell violently as he roared, "You heartless person, how dare you be so unrestrained." He turned his head to look at me, nodded slightly in recognition of my proposal, and then asked sternly, "Who is that man? You have brought shame to the Shin family by doing such a thing, and now our family can no longer tolerate such behavior from you." Emma sat on the ground in a limp, crying bitterly, saying, "I know I was wrong, please give me another chance." Emma's father snorted, "Another chance? After the huge mistake you've made, what makes you think you deserve another chance? I advise you to relax, this is already the best arrangement for you. That man is her biological father, I heard her say so with my own ears." I was shocked to hear this. "Sister, what are you talking about? Recently, someone said that my biological father was the director of the orphanage, but then Dad went to find out for me and proved it wasn't true. By the way, how did you find out about this? Did you know before you started dating him, or did you find out afterwards?" I covered my mouth as if I had discovered a secret. At this moment, the atmosphere in the Shin family hall was suffocatingly tense. Emma's father's face turned ashen at the sound of my words, and the veins on his forehead bulged as he angrily roared, "What a shameless girl." After saying this, he turned around and strode out, never willing to look at Emma again. Emma looked at Emma's father's determined back and completely collapsed to the ground, her desperate cries echoing in the empty hall. "Do you like the present I gave you?" I looked at her and sneered. Emma suddenly stood up from the ground, pointed at me with trembling fingers, her eyes full of anger, and she shouted, "You shameless thief! You got everything from me. You took away my happiness and my future. You despicable guy, sooner or later you will get your comeuppance." Her voice was harsh, almost shouting with all her strength, her face contorted with anger and pain. "Do you think this can defeat me? I won't let you off so easily," Emma said, panting, as if she had lost her mind and gone mad. Hearing her words, I just raised my eyebrows slightly, and a sneer appeared at the corner of my mouth. I didn't bother to look at her again, and decisively turned and left, leaving only one sentence echoing in the air: "Go on and scream, you deserve to taste this kind of pain too, there is retribution in the heavens." Emma shouted hoarsely from behind, while I walked further and further away, leaving her voice behind. In the hall, her resentful cries were especially poignant, but I no longer cared. She had once caused me harm, and now she was experiencing the pain of retaliation. All of this was her just desserts. Later, the Shin family hastily married Emma off in a cold and hurried ceremony. I saw the face of the orphanage director again, but this time, I had nothing to do with him. Soon after, there was a fire at the orphanage, with flames shooting high into the sky and smoke billowing. I had long since had Emma's father expose the orphanage director's various misdeeds, and the other children had long since been transferred out of the orphanage. The fire trapped only the two of them, struggling in despair, just as I had done back then. Now, the wheel of fate had finally come to them. At that moment, I was studying abroad at Stanford University. Sitting in a spacious and bright classroom, I could see the green trees outside the window swaying gently in the breeze. I took a deep breath, feeling the fresh breeze of the trees on my face, and I was happy both physically and mentally. At that moment, a message from Emma's father popped up on my phone, asking me to go back and manage the company with her after graduation. The sunlight shone through the window, warm and comfortable, and I smiled, my heart full of anticipation for the future.